Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's channel, I have to make a lot of wreaths, so I figured I would get on here and I would make one with bare minimum everything. I'm going to try to keep it short, my explanation short, because I know y'all don't want to sit here and listen to me talk. But what I'm going to show you is how to make a wreath without your easy bow maker, your rotary cutter. We are going to take it back. I'm going to use cheap scissors. I'm going to use everything that I used when I first started out wreath making. When you first start out wreath making, you don't have, you know, all of these extra things. Yes, it does take longer to make the wreath. I am not going to lie. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I am going to show you how I'm doing the process, and then I will do the remaining of it off camera. That way you're not stuck watching a 3-hour video as I explain. The longest process of this video is going to be the bow, because we are not going to use a bow maker. We are going to use our hands, and we're just going to make a hand bow. And I can show you that you can make a really pretty hand bow without a bow dabra, without all of these other stuff, which of course, mind you, I do use this stuff now. I make way too many wreaths and it takes too long for this process. But when you're first starting out, don't go out and spend a whole bunch of money on all these utensils and you don't even know if you're going to like the craft or not. However, I do like the craft, so I have bought, you know, well, my husband has made me something to make my bows, to cut my ribbons. Instead of individually, I cut them all at the same time. It makes the process faster. It makes it easier. However, in the very beginning, you do not have these things. So I'm going to show you how I started making my wreaths in the beginning, with bare minimum utensils to make the process go fast. I'm not going to spend any more time talking. I will explain my process and how I do everything. Excuse me. And what we will use. So these are all the materials that I'm going to use. I will use my hot glue to secure my mounts to the back of my sign. So I will have everything linked in the description below if you would like to see where I got my ribbon, where I got my mesh, my wreath frame, and you understand. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do before anything is I like to set up my sign. So let's move this stuff out of the way. So I have my 4 mounting squares. So what I'm going to do is I just like to put them in the corners. So I do like to ensure that nothing falls off over time on all of my stuff. So I do take some Gorilla Glue and I take my mounting squares, and even though you know on the back they're adhesive, that adhesive over time wears away. So I will put some super glue on my mounting squares just to give it an extra amount of security. And then once I put my mounting squares on, I will go around those mounting squares with hot glue. So once I have that done, we're going to go ahead and set this aside and allow that to dry. We will come back to it to add our pipe cleaners on. So once that's done, I am going to prep my base. What I do is I add a pipe cleaner, 2 on the bottom wire, and then I'll attach it with these bottom 2, and then I will add one directly in the middle on this top wire right here. So what I do is I take my pipe cleaner and I pull it through those top 2. I'm going to fold it over, and then I just twist twice to secure it. I will do this on this end as well. I will place it down, fold it over. Before you twist, make sure you tighten it, just don't pull it too hard. So now I will take it through these top 2 wires, fold it over, pull just a tad, and then I will twist it twice, and there you have it. And I'll do this on each section of the frame. This is a 16-inch frame. So after I am completed with all my ties, I will have 18 in total. All right, so now that we have all the pipe cleaners on our frame, we have 2 on the bottom 2 wires and 1 directly in the middle on the top wire on all of them. We have 18 pipe cleaners. I'm going to set that aside. Now I went ahead and moved my rotary mat because I'm not going to use my rotary tool. I am going to hand cut all the mesh for my wreath. So this is what I did in the very beginning. So I didn't have to constantly bring out my ruler, make sure everything was the correct length. What I did was I just grabbed my ruler, grabbed some tape, and of course you could do this however you want to do it. This is just how I did it in the very beginning. Now if you have, if I can get the tape to work with me. Now if you have an old craft table like I do now, I literally just took a ruler and I notched it. So I'm gonna move it closer. So I just added a piece of tape to my desk. I took my ruler, took a pencil, and I added what I was gonna use for my specific wreath. So my tails are going, so if this is, we're gonna say this is 1, all my tails are going to be cut at 13. So I know that this is going to be a length I use for my ribbon tails. Let's see, 15. And then all of my mesh is going to be cut at 20 inches. So now it was as easy as that for me. I had it right here. I didn't have to worry about it. I knew that I could bring it here. That was going to be 13 inches. I could bring it here and it was going to be 20 inches. And then I didn't have to worry about constantly messing with my ruler. Double verify my math. Because you know, sometimes when it comes to math, I'm wrong. Okay, so once I had that, I'm gonna grab my mesh. I am going to set them both on top of each other, so I'm cutting 2 at a time instead of 1 individually. That will cut down on time. Really, with this process going to be longer. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to bring it to the end of my tape. I'm going to come down here. And I'm literally going to cut I'm gonna roll it and just set it to the ground. And I will do this process. You're gonna want 18 of these. We have 18 pipe cleaners. We're going to want 18 cuts each because I'm gonna put both colors on each pipe cleaner. Come down, And like I said, this process is going to take you a whole lot longer, but if you don't have a rotary cutter, you don't have the money to get a rotary cutter or a rotary board, you really have no other option. That was me in the very beginning. So you just work with what you got. So this is what we have. If I can keep my mesh to stay. Let's grab something heavy. So bring it down. Get your scissors. We know we want to cut each one at 20 inches. So I'm going to come down here and just cut. Let it roll up naturally. Set it to the ends. And I'm going to make 18 of these off the camera, and then we will come back and we will explain the next process. All right, so now we have all of our mesh cut. You're gonna have 18 cuts of one color, 18 cuts of your other color. You do not have to have two separate colors. You can use whatever colors you want. I prefer to have two separate ones. It's just the style of the look that I love with my bases. Now I know that in this method that I'm going to use, I will use 2 full rolls of mesh. And so I'll have empty rolls after that. So again, you'll have 18 of one color, 18 of another color, both cuts at 20 inches with 10-inch mesh. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut my ribbon. Now when it comes to my ribbon, I usually have 2 focal point ribbon that I put on all of my pipe cleaners. So these are my 2 focal point ribbon that I got for this wreath. I do usually pick my signs first, and then I base my 2 focal point ribbon off of my sign. And so once I have that, when you start making wreaths, you start having ribbon and stuff that's laying around. So that's what I usually use for my bow. My bow, I add more ribbons. I add up to 5 to 7 ribbons on my bow, depending on how I want it to look. Now, usually I try to incorporate all the colors in my sign, but I do not want this wreath to turn out 4th of July. I want it to be elegant. I want it to specifically be an everyday wreath for people who just love their soldier. Where I live right next to an army base, so we have a lot of soldiers here. So what I do is I just get into my ribbon stash and I just match this ribbon with the rest of it. That's exactly what I do. If you enjoy making wreaths, one thing I'd recommend is during the seasons, hit up Hobby Lobby. They have 50 roll ribbon and a lot of it is really good quality for $6.98. So make sure you do that. That's where I got these. These were from past projects. I'm obsessed with sheer ribbon. If you watch any, I don't do a lot of wreath YouTube videos, but when I do, you'll always see me use sheer ribbon. I love sheer ribbon. It adds a pop of color, but not overpowering color because you can see through it. So that's what I do. I pick out my sign. I match 2 of my main ribbons to that sign, and then I just go through my stash and I usually just match all my colors together. I could easily put blue and red in this wreath to tie in the heart, to tie in the flag, but again, I didn't want it too 4th of July, too patriotic, because then that condenses this down to specifically 4th of July or Memorial Day, and my goal for this wreath is to make it an everyday wreath. So that's enough talking. So that's how I pick out my ribbon. So these 2 are going to be my 2 focal point ribbon. So what I'm going to do is I cut with this style of mesh that I'm using for the base. It turns out really full. So in order for you to see the ribbon properly, I'm going to cut both of these at 13 inches. I do cut out this I don't like that crease, but it's up to you. So what I will do is I will come over here. I will find my 13 and I will cut this, and that's the same thing I will do here. I will grab my other ribbon, take it to the end of my tape, find my 13, and I will cut it. Now the reason I do 13, sometimes I do 14, but normally I do 13 because the style of base that I'm going to show you in this video is what I do for a lot of my wreaths. It turns out full, it turns out super great. So 13 I realize is a pretty magic number. 12, they seem to be too short. The ribbons will fold in on themselves, and 14 sometimes seems too long, and it looks messy to me, so I don't do that. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to apply these two ribbons together on each pipe cleaner. So we have 18 pipe cleaners, but here is what I learned is normally on my wreaths, I apply my bow and then I apply my sign. There's no point of wasting ribbon on something you're going to cover up with a sign. So the way this sign is, the bow, I'm thinking I won't have to apply to all my pipe cleaners, so I'm not going to waste that ribbon. So normally on every wreath I put about 17. So I'm not going to cut 18 of these. I am going to cut 17. When we put our base together and I put my bow and my sign on, then if I need that 18, then I'll go ahead and cut it, but I'm not going to waste the ribbon if I don't need to. So I'm going to go ahead and cut both of my ribbon at 13 inches, and I'm going to cut 17 of them. All right, so now we have the two ribbon that I'm going to add to every pipe cleaner on the frame. So I did 17 each. Again, I did 17 instead of 18 because normally the bow turns out so big. I am not going to waste my ribbon on to be covered up by a bow. You won't even be able to see it. So that is why I cut 17. If we need 18 once we start assembling everything, then I'll worry about that then. So once you have your cuts, I usually, and I'm not using fabric scissors, so I can't cut more than 2 or 3, and then my cuts start looking bad. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna dovetail our ribbon. So I usually take about 3. I will fold it in half. You're gonna come on the fabric side and you're gonna go up towards the wire. So I'm gonna come at an angle. I hold the top because if you don't have fabric scissors, it doesn't cut well. They kind of just fold over. But of course, you can make it work. So I cut it and then hold the top, and then I just do that. So I will come to this other side. I will fold it in half. Come to the fabric side. I'm going to cut it at an angle, and I'm going to cut it up towards the wire. And there you have it. 2 pretty dovetails. So I'm going to come to the other ribbon. I'm going to take 3 of them, fold it together, come to the fabric, cut it at an angle, and then I'm going to flip them around, do the same thing, fold it, come to the fabric, work towards the wire. And there you'll have your dovetails. We're going to go ahead and dovetail the rest of our ribbon, and then I will be back. All right, now that we have all of our ribbon dovetailed, we are going to bring back our sign now that it is dried, and I am going to go ahead and apply the pipe cleaners. I just stick it through and just wrap it around. One thing that I do like to do is I like to take a pair of pliers and I like to crimp it down a little bit. Make sure that top part of that pipe cleaner isn't sticking out to get caught in the mesh whenever I put my sign on. And I'm going to go ahead and do that to all 4 of these mounts. All right, now that that is done, I am going to bring my hot glue back, and I do apply a little bit more hot glue just to cover it as an extra security. One thing that my husband did bring up, which is actually a really good point, is my video is based off of not having a rotary cutter, a rotary board, you know, all of the things that makes making a wreath easy. So one thing I do recommend is you can get a glue gun at the dollar store, and I do recommend getting a glue gun. That is one thing that I will not do, because I have in the very beginning tried to just put cable mounts on, and again, like I said, that adhesive will fall off, and you don't want to end up liking making wreaths and then you sell a wreath to somebody and then you're getting bad feedback back because after 2 months their sign fell off because the adhesive wasn't sticking anymore. So you can go to the Dollar Tree and you can go to, I got mine, I think it was less than $10. One thing I do not go cheap on either is my hot glue. I use the Gorilla Glue hot glue, and I use the Gorilla super glue. That is one thing I don't go cheap on. Again, once I'm just happy that the sign that fell off was a wreath of mine, and this is when I very first started out, and I will not make that mistake again. So to keep you from making that mistake, make sure that you at least get a glue gun, and you just make sure your mounts are secured so you don't have to worry about any of that if you ever do decide to start selling your wreaths. So once that's done, we pretty much have all of our prep work done other than the bow, which we're going to move on to next. That will be the more lengthy part of the video. However, I will try to make sure it's not too long. So we have everything pre-prepped. That is one thing that I do like to do. I like to pre-prep all of my stuff, so when it comes to assembling it, putting it together, everything's already done. I just have to grab what I need and put it all together. So again, you have your 16-inch frame. You could use whatever frame you want to use, but mine is 16. 2 pipe cleaners at the bottom, 1 pipe cleaner in the very center at the top. On each section, giving you 18 pipe cleaners. I have used 2 different kinds of mesh, both 10 inches cut at 20-inch cuts, and it used 2 rolls. I cut my 17 of my ribbon, my 17 pieces of my 13-inch of my ribbon. Again, I have 18 pipe cleaners, but my bow usually covers a big section of it, so I'm not going to waste my ribbon to cover it up by a bow. So I cut 17. If we need to cut another one later, that is what we'll do. And then we prepped our sign. So the only thing that we have to prep is our bow, which we will go ahead and do. So one thing I am going to do is I'm going to bring my ruler back, because when we did our measurements, I did not think about the bow. My bows, normally I make a 10-inch tail, and then I usually do, I'm gonna go ahead and just mark 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. I normally don't go under 4, so I'm gonna stop there. Okay, so once you have that, I am going to start, I want to be able to see this ribbon. So what I'm going to do is I will take my ribbon. All right, so take 2 on the hand bow. And the reason I tell y'all that is because I'm sure some people's going to notice the change in scenery that I have here, I have no idea what happened, nor am I going to try to figure out what happened. We're going to start over and make another bow. So, hand bows, they seem very intimidating. A lot of videos kind of just fly through them. They do explain, but it takes a long time to get down. So this is what we are going to do. So you have all your ribbon. I've showed you all the ribbon that I'm going to use. So what I like to do is I like to make my tails at 10 inches. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to simply pinch that together. So I'm going to put the end of my ribbon at the end of my tape, and then I'm going to come to the 10-inch mark, and I'm just going to gather it up right there and hold it with this hand. I'm going to come over. Now I want to start my bow at a 7-inch bow. So we're going to have to double that because you're going to loop it over on itself. So you're going to bring this end mark down to the end of your tape. Here is our 7-inch mark. That's where we want, how big we want our loop. I'm going to come down, I'm going to double that to 14. So I'm going to bunch this up. I'm just going to hold it like this, and I'm going to bring my fingers together. So you're going to scrunch that together. So now you have one loop. You have one loop. Here's your tail. Here's the rest of that ribbon. Now, we have to make sure that we keep the pretty side showing for the other loop. So if you simply do what we just did, and we come down and we grab it and you take it under, as you can see that loop right there, it's the underside of the fabric. So we are going to twist the ribbon. So what you're going to do is you're holding it with this. You're going to take this end of the ribbon that is still attached to the spool, and you're going to simply twist it to where now the non-pretty side is showing. You're going to come to the end of your tape. You're going to come down to 14. You're going to bunch it like you did the first one. You have it in both your hands, and you're just going to bring it together and pinch it with the finger with the rest of the ribbon. So now you have your loop, your tail, and you have the rest of this. So now I do want to make sure that my loops are even. So I'll bring them together, look at them, they're even, make sure they're good. Okay, so now we still have the underside of this ribbon. So we are gonna twist it once again. So you're gonna take that ribbon and you're gonna twist it. And now you have the pretty side. So now you have your loops that are pretty, your tails that are pretty. We're gonna cut this at 10 as well. So I'm going to bring my finger down to the end of the tape, come to the 10-inch mark, and I'm gonna cut. So once you have that, I have these clips that I got from the Dollar Tree. You can use a chip clip. Honestly, that's what I used when I first started making wreaths. I didn't make special trips to go buy anything, and it's simply just gonna hold it for you. So you're gonna set that aside. You are now going to grab your next ribbon. After you put that one up, which is going to be our army ribbon. You're gonna do the same thing, but this time what I'm going to do is I want my loops to gradually go down as I make my bow. So this time I'm gonna go down by ½ an inch or an inch, depending on what you want your ribbon or your bow to be. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna bring it down to the end of the tape. I'm gonna come to my 10-inch mark. That's gonna be my tail. I'm gonna pinch, place this in the other hand. I'm gonna bring it down, and I'm going to make it 13. So come all the way down to the 13, pinch, take both your hands, bring them together. you're gonna pinch that into the other finger. So again, you have your loop and you have your tail. Now, we want to make this side the pretty. Remember, you can't just pinch and bring it underneath because then you're left with the non-pretty side of the bow. So you're gonna simply take it and you're gonna twist it, bringing the not so pretty side down. You're gonna bring it to the end of your tape. You're gonna come down. We want the same size loop. We're gonna come, pinch it together. Now we can bring our hands together and add it to the rest of that ribbon. And now you have your 2 loops. You have your tail, and now you have this tail, the pretty sides down. So all you have to do, twist that ribbon, bring it down, find the 10-inch mark, and then cut. Now what I'm going to do is before I remove this clip, I'm going to set this on top because I do not want any of this to unravel. I'm going to put it on top of the clip. I have my thumb and I have my finger on the other side of the clip. I'm going to loosen that clip and pull it out ever so gently, or it will catch and it will fall apart. So once you have that, don't worry about it looking pretty because we will go back and we will fix it and make it look pretty. Those are just to hold it together. So once you have that, you're gonna set that ribbon aside. You're gonna come and grab your next ribbon. So I'm gonna use this green burlap. Same process. You're gonna bring it to the end of your tape. You're gonna come down to the 10. You're gonna pinch, place it in the other finger, come down to the end of your tape. We did 14, we did 13. Now I'm gonna drop it down to 12. So I'm gonna pinch this together, and then I am going to bring those 2 fingers together, and I'm gonna pinch that ribbon together. Now, this is both the same, however, on this side you can see the wire, so I do want to pinch this and turn it to make sure the pretty side is on the loop. So I'm going to bring it down to the end of my ribbon, come down to that 12-inch mark. I'm going to pinch this, have my loop, and then this, I'm just going to simply join my fingers together with the rest of that ribbon. So I'm not going to cut this because it's only a couple inches off. I'll cut that when I dovetail it. So now we have this, but this is the not pretty side. So now we're going to come and we're just going to twist. Now we have both of our loops, both of our tails. Check it, it's good. So I'm going to bring this back in the same process. I don't want to lose my form on that bow, so I'm going to place it on top of the clip, gently remove it, and put the clip back. And it just simply holds it together for you. So I'm going to come to my next ribbon, bring it down to the end of your tape. We're going to come to that 10-inch mark. We're going to pinch together, put it in the other hand. We're going to bring it back down. We're going to come, we're going to come to the 11, come down. We're going to pinch it together. This is the end of that ribbon, which is fine. It's going to be a shorter tail, but we'll make it work. So we're going to come down. We're just going to twist this so we have the not so pretty side. We're going to pinch it, bring it together. And because this stack is getting kind of big, I'm actually going to remove that clip, put this on top, and we're going to move over to the pipe cleaner that we are going to secure the bow with. And I like to slide it in between my middle finger and my pointer finger, right in the middle. Just hold it, and because we're not done with the bow, I'm just gonna twist it very loosely just to hold it together. Now it doesn't look very pretty now, but we're gonna play with it here in a minute. So we're gonna take the last ribbon. In this ribbon, I am not gonna make 2 loops because I am just going to create one little loop to go directly in the middle, which is going to hide our pipe cleaner. So I'm gonna come down, I'm still gonna create a 10-inch tail. I'm gonna pinch it together. I'm gonna hold it in the other hands. I'm gonna bring it down, and my little loop, we want it to be probably about 6 inches. So I'm gonna come down to the 6-inch mark, which is gonna create a 3-inch loop. Okay, so pinch it together, put it in the other hand. And there we have it, just a simple little loop, just one. We're gonna come find our 10-inch mark. We're gonna cut that. Now, when you place this on here, make sure you don't separate these tails because it will fall apart on you. So you have to tie it in just like that. So I'm gonna place this on top of the rest of my ribbon. Take this apart. And now that we are done with the bow, now we could secure it. So I'm going to slide it in between both my fingers. This time I'm gonna press down as hard as I can, trying to bring my thumb and my pointer finger together. I'm gonna take that pipe cleaner and I'm gonna twist that bow. So here you have it. It looks like a hot mess. So this is when you take that ribbon and ever so gently, and we're not gonna pull this one too much because this is the one that had that little part right here and it will slide out. So I'm not going to tug on that too much. And we just separate this. What I like to do with my bows is I don't like having the tail and the loop of the same ribbon together. So what I will do is I will pull that loop down and that tail up on one side. And then don't forget on the other side, you have the same thing. You have a tail, you have a loop. So if the tail is up here, I don't want this tail up here. I want the loop. So I'm going to do it opposite. I'm gonna take this tail, I'm gonna move this tail down, and I'm gonna move this loop up. So now we have tails going this way, loops going this way. It's the same thing with all the ribbon. All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to extend these pipe cleaners. That way when we place them through the mesh, that I am not having to just work with a little amount of pipe cleaners that are left, because I want my bow to sit on top of my mesh, not sink down into my mesh. So what I do is I take another pipe cleaner, I fold it in half, I cut it, And then I put it on one end and create an X. And then what I do is I just twist that pipe cleaner onto the other. And I do that to the exact other side. I twist it. And what I do like to do is I like to take a pair of pliers and I like to push down on that pipe cleaner, because when you put it through the mesh, it's going to catch, and it just helps with not catching on the mesh. So I'm just going to push that down a little bit. Make sure there's no ends, like this one right here. That's where the end of that pipe cleaner was. So I'm just going to take these, I'm going to put it on that spot, and I'm just going to clamp it down. And then I'm going to do that to the exact same other side, create an X. All right, so now that we have everything done, we have our bow, our ribbon tails that we're going to be putting on the wreath, we have our mesh cut, our base formed. We are going to go ahead and assemble, and now you don't have to worry about cutting. I went ahead and took the tape off. You don't have to worry about cutting anything, prepping anything. Everything is already done. So I am going to move everything out of the way. I am going to start on my base. So this is a style that I use a lot. It will create a full wreath. Mind you, remember, I know a lot of people buy their wreath frames off from Dollar Tree. I do not use the Dollar Tree wreath frames. Really, I mean, their frames are $1.25 because it's 25 cents more now. Or I can get on Craft Outlet and I can buy a 16-inch frame for, I think it was $2.75 that I bought this. And to me, that's worth it because it does help the style of your wreath. Now, if you do want a flatter wreath, then their frames are great because they're flat. However, this one does come up and it creates a fuller wreath. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I am going to alternate my mesh each pipe cleaner. What I'm going to do as well is I am going to do the whole entire base with one mesh, only because when you cut your mesh, you will see that you have bigger cuts and more tight rings, because this is the outside, and the closer you get to the inside of the tube, they are going to be tighter, and I prefer the fullness of these, so I'm going to use these on the bottom so I can cover them up. So what I do is I take one of those Dollar Tree clips. You could use a chip clip, whatever works. So I use this method because it also hides the mesh. If you mess with mesh, it does fray and you're not going to get around it at all. So what I do is I will fold it 2 or 3 times. I will clip it, I will roll it, not fold it. I will roll it 2 or 3 times, clip it in the middle. I will turn it around and do the same exact thing this method. So roll it 2 or 3 times. Now I'm going to scrunch it directly down the middle until the one end of the rings meets the other. I will take this clip off, and that is what you're left with. Now, I do bolt styles. I will put it on like this, or I will flip it upside down. It does create different styles. With this one, I don't want a lot. They're going to poke out anyways, but I want them to be tighter, so I will place that down. I'm going to come to my pipe cleaner, and I place it diagonal in the pipe cleaner. And what I will do is I will twist the pipe cleaner, pull it as tight as I can, and I'm going to twist it once. I'm going to come to my green one. I'm going to do the same process. I am going to roll it 2 or 3 times, clip it in the middle, flip it around. The tighter rings do like to flip, so I just hold them down. roll it 2 or 3 times, scrunch it down the middle, gather it. I'm gonna flip it upside down. If you have ones where this part is coming out more, you can loosen your grip a little bit and pull it and even it out. I'm gonna come to my next pipe cleaner, place it in there diagonal, and I'm going to pull it as tight as I can and twist it once. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do that all around the whole entire base, top and bottom. All right, so we have our mesh down for the first base. And as you can tell, you can still see through it. I'm not worried about it. Once we put our other 18 pieces of mesh on top, then it'll all fill out. So what I am going to do, and it is the same process. So now you are going to place your mesh on the opposite color. So if you have green, or if you have the natural, whatever your colors you're using, for my case, the natural, I am going to place a green on top. If I have a green, I am gonna place a natural on top. So once you do your roll, roll, flip, scrunch, or roll, roll, scrunch. Okay, so to ensure that I get like every spot that is open, I laid the first set of mesh down like this. Now I'm gonna take my base and I'm gonna lay it down like this. That way it overlaps every direction and I don't have to worry about it. So I have green mesh, so I'm gonna find a natural. I'm gonna place it on top the opposite direction. I am going to tighten it as tight as I can. This time I'm gonna do it twice because that is the last bit of mesh that I'm gonna put on. I'm gonna grab my next color. Same process, roll, roll, flip. Roll, roll, scrunch. Turn it upside down. Grab your frame back. You're gonna come to the next pipe cleaner, which should be green. Don't forget, I put it down like this. So I'm gonna take my frame and I am going to put it down the opposite. Grab your pipe cleaner, place it in the middle, tighten it down as tight as you can, and I'm going to secure it with 2 twists. So now I'm gonna do that to every single pipe cleaner. All right, so now we have a beautiful full wreath base. The colors turned out super gorgeous. I know some people get kind of nervous when it comes to cost. Believe it or not, this base didn't cost me much money. The mesh that I try to purchase, I purchase a lot of my supplies on Craft Outlet, and I always look at their sales category before I go anywhere. So both rows of mesh cost me under $4, and it's gorgeous together and it looks very good together. And it made for a nice full wreath. That's the reason I like this method so much. So what I like to do, one thing I did do off camera, is I like to, when I'm messing with the sign that is not circle, I like to push in my frame a little bit. Just be careful when you do it because your brackets can break off where they are welded together. And I do just push a little bit of tension on it and I make it not so circular. It's very subtle, not a big difference, but I do that. And our back is still pretty. That's the way that I like to keep it because I do not cover my back. I don't want to risk rain getting on it, mold or anything of that sort. So I leave my back exposed. So I always do try to make sure it's pretty and that the pipe cleaners do match my material that I'm using. So once you have your frame, what I like to do is I like to apply my sign and my bow first because I am not gonna waste ribbon. That is one thing. Some ribbon, really your styled ribbon, your designer ribbon, like this ribbon, it's going to be more than something that's just plain. Even this was cheaper than your styled ribbon. So I apply my sign and my bow before anything, before my ribbon tails, because I'm not gonna apply ribbon tails under something that you're never even going to see. So what I'm gonna do is I will find a position that I want to place my bow, and I'm gonna take my 2 pipe cleaners and I'm just gonna run them down the bottom through all my mesh. Sometimes this is the most difficult part. I'm gonna come off camera for a minute. So once I get my pipe cleaners through, and I'm not worried about squishing my bow, we're gonna fix it. So now you have your 2 pipe cleaners that you pulled through your mesh, and I want to attach it to something so it's not free flowing, so it doesn't move, it doesn't slide down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over, but I'm going to show you, is I will find this one is closer to this pipe cleaner. So what I'm going to do is I will wrap that pipe cleaner around the bottom of that frame, and then I will continue back and forth wrapping it around this pipe cleaner to give it stability. And then I'm going to do this one to that. So when you're putting a bow on, make sure it's secure, but that you're not pulling down too far. If you pull down too far, you're gonna push your bow down and it's not going to look good. You want it to be secure, but you also want it to sit nicely on top of your mesh. You don't want to push your mesh down too far. So I'm just gonna find a good, an even area where I kind of hold my pipe cleaners and I see if my bow's gonna go anywhere. And when I feel like it's secure, that is when I'm gonna attach it to those 2 pipe cleaners that I showed you. All right, so now that we have our bow fully attached, and I used these 2 pipe cleaners to make sure it was secure. Again, don't worry about how flat the bow is. We'll mess with that here in a little bit. So now we are going to apply our sign. And so one thing, I mean, you can put your sign wherever you want to put it, but I like to put it somewhat in the middle to kind of block that hole. Some people like to have the center part exposed, and in some wreaths I do, but when I'm using the long signs, I like to caddy it. And so I'm going to make sure that my wreath and my bow is where it's going to be when I hang it. And then I'm going to take my sign and I'm going to caddy this a little bit, moving it the corner towards the middle. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the bow. So I'm going to take my pipe cleaners and I am going to push them through. All right, so once you have all your pipe cleaners, figure out where you want to position it. I like to hold it down a little bit, and then I'll take one pipe cleaner. I will find, just like I did with the bow, another piece of pipe cleaner or the crossing bars, and I want to use that to brace my sign so it doesn't move around. So I'll just wrap it, all of them once, because then I'm going to flip it over. And secure the rest of it. All right, so once I have where my sign is going to be, I'm just going to show you real quick. Here are my 4 points. I attached it to pipe cleaners that are already on, so it does not move and it stays exactly where I want it to stay. And so I'm going to continue that process, and I'm going to wrap them around the wire. I'm going to run them through another pipe cleaner so it stays secure. And this is the same thing as with my bow. I do not want to push my mesh down too much. I still want to keep it fluffy. I want to keep it full. I don't want, by the time I put my ribbon tails on, that my ribbon tails are super full, and then in the middle I have pushed down my sign so much that it sinks it in the middle. I do not want to do that. So I'm going to secure it enough to where it does not move, but I'm still going to leave it on top of the mesh without pushing the mesh down too far. So now we have our sign completely secured to our frame with here's one point, another point, the third point, and the fourth point. And as you can tell, we're still keeping it pretty. We're making sure we're keeping it tight, keeping it well put together. That way the back looks well. So now you'll be able to see why I place my bow and my sign on before I do my ribbon. Because here's my bow. If you flip it around, you see this point right here? There is no point to add a ribbon tails to there. And here I will go ahead and add ribbon tails, but only because this is the edge of the ribbon, so we want those tails to come out. But that other pipe cleaner is right directly in the middle of this bow, and it would have just been wasted ribbon if you would have cut tails for that. And then as for the sign, if you look at the back, we still will add the only one that it's covering are these 3 right here. However, when you look at your wreath, you can still access your pipe cleaners from underneath that sign. So we're still going to want to put there. So that is the reason I cut 17 of my ribbon that I'm going to put on my tails, because it saved us 13 inches per ribbon that you cut, because you're going to cover one up with that bow. So we're not even going to put one underneath that bow. So now with that being done, what you're going to do is you're going to bring back your ribbon that you are going to place on your pipe cleaners. And then you can use whatever you want to use. This is just how I'm going to do this wreath. And what I want to do is I want to expose this ribbon with the Defend, Hero, Strong, the Army on the front. So I'm going to place that on top, and then I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to crease it. So you have that now. You're going to unfold it, and you're going to pinch it directly in the middle. So you now have that. So what I am going to do, I'm not going to directly place this on my pipe cleaner. What I am going to do now is I'm going to fold it down a little bit. I do like to play with it. Make sure these parts by my finger are folded down and not up, because then the ribbon just doesn't look as well to me. So now you have like a little arrow. And so what I'm going to do is I'll come over here where it's more exposed. I'm gonna grab some of my pipe cleaner. I'm gonna, where my thumb is at, how I find it easiest is once I have it pinched, I'm gonna take that pinch with this finger, grab my pipe cleaner, place it directly down in the middle. I am just going to secure it as tight as I can, and I am going to wrap it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 until I have a length like that. I'm gonna take some cutters, and then that's when I clip it once I feel it is secure. You have to make sure it's secure, because if you don't feel it's secure, when you go to pull these ribbon tails apart, you're going to pull it off of your pipe cleaner. And at that point in time, you've already cut your pipe cleaner, so it's hard to get them on after that point. Then I'm gonna take that little point and I'm going to roll it and push this down. It helps hide that pipe cleaner. So I don't want to manipulate the ribbons too much. I don't want to spread them too much. I want them to stay downwards. It would be pointless to move them up with us moving the ribbons in the arrow shape that we did. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these just a small amount, still leaving them going down. I'm going to have one of my printed ribbon going this way, my camo going this way. So with my camo moving down, now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move this camo up and the words down, still leaving that downward motion. And I am going to go and I'm going to do that to every single one of my pipe cleaners, minus that one that's under the bow. So I'm going to take the camo, I'm going to take the hero ribbon, place them together, fold them in half, crimp the bottom, open it. You're going to then scrunch it together, bring those cut ends towards yourself. Once you have your ribbon the way you want it, you're going to find your next pipe cleaner. I grab it just like this, still keeping that shape because I'm right hand dominant, and I grab the pipe cleaners with my right hand. And then I twist it, or I pull it as tight as I can. I'm going to wrap it a couple times until I feel it's absolutely secure. I'm going to take my clippers, I'm going to clip it, take that nub that's sticking up, and I'm going to push it down towards the back. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to follow that same pattern. I'm going to bring camo down, the words up, and then I'll bring the words down and the camo up. And we'll play with them some more once everything's on. Okay, now you can absolutely wait until the very end to clip all of your pipe cleaners. I just do it as I go because you already have that pipe cleaner in your hand. It's easier for me to clip it before I finish the whole entire wreath, or I'm stuck trying to hunt down and I have already adjusted all of my ribbon and I have to separate them, then I have to, it causes more work for me, so I'd prefer not to do it. You can do it however you want to do it. That's just how I do it. So I'm gonna put the ribbon together, fold it in half, place it down, scrunch it in the middle. You have that. You're gonna bring it towards yourself And like an arrow, your cut edges come to yourself. Once you get the ribbon the way you want the ribbon, you will come to your next pipe cleaner. And one thing I do is I work the bottom and then I go to the top, because I'm not trying to squish the ribbon more than it needs to be messed with. So I take it in that other hand, I grab my pipe cleaner, put it directly in the middle. I tighten it as tight as I can get it. I wrap it a couple times. I'll clip that pipe cleaner and push that center down towards the middle. I will place the camo on the bottom, and I will place the camo on the top on this one. And then we'll move on, and I'll do every pipe cleaner on the bottom row, and then I will start on the top, and I will do every pipe cleaner on the top row. All right, we have the whole bottom row filled with our ribbon. So I wanted to show you the top row. So what we are going to do on the top row, it's pretty much the same thing. So you're going to fold your ribbon in half. You're going to scrunch it down the middle. Bring it towards yourself. You're going to find your pipe cleaner. Place it in the center. Twist it as tight as you can. Twist it a couple times. Clip the pipe cleaner, push the pipe cleaner down. The reason I wanted to show it to you is because on the bottom row, we have the wording ribbon on top, and then the camo goes down. So we're going to want to do the opposite on the second row. So I am not going to pull this on top. I'm going to pull this part down. So now I'm going to put the wording on bottom, and I'm going to put the camo on top. That way, because if we switched it around, if you did it this way, you're going to have camo on camo, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to switch it around. That way I have my wording ribbon next to my camo. I'm gonna pull this the opposite direction. Now we have our camo next to our wording ribbon. That way it's opposite. I am going to do that with the remaining of the pipe cleaners. All right, so now we have all of our ribbon tails on. It is all coming together. Now we are going to mess with this bow. I don't want it to cover my sign, so I will come through and I will pull on the ribbon ever so slightly. Try to make sure that my sign isn't being covered, but the bow still looks nice. So just play around with it. Try to get it the best you can from being covered up. So I'm gonna now go through and I am going to dovetail all of my ribbon tails, and I'm not going to make all of them even. I'm going to cut some shorter, some longer, just whatever makes it look nice. And then we're going to play with the bow a little bit more, make sure it's exactly how we want it. So I'm gonna come in, and the same thing like you did with the ribbon tails, just gonna come in, I'm gonna fold it in half, come to the fabric side, and I'm gonna cut at an angle to the wire. All right, so I think I have all of my tails cut. I'm gonna look at it. Twist it, look at it, and you're just gonna play with it until it looks exactly how you want it to look. Again, we don't want to cover up too much of the sign. One thing I like to do as well, to make sure that the same colored ribbon aren't too close to each other. If you have two of your tails that are close to each other, I separate them in between a different color or style of ribbon. That way you get the full effect of everything. You don't have just one specific ribbon dominating the whole entire bow. All right, and there we have it. Super cute, all done with just a cheap pair of scissors, no rotary cutter, done as if you were just starting out and you don't have any special tools. So like the page, subscribe to my channel, and I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a wonderful day.